Hey guys, today I am going to do a sponge filter review from the company called AQQA, and the product is their aquarium bio sponge filter. Full disclaimer, they did send me this product to review, but I was actually going to buy the same exact product anyway because I like the design. I also got the biggest one, which is size here in Amazon as medium for some reason. Apparently it's able to filter up to 110 gallons. Something tells me it's probably not going to filter 110 gallon, but it will definitely do it for 20 gallon, which is the tank I am using for most of my fish. So when I was taking this out of the box, I honestly thought I was given a defective product. It was really dusty and the sponge didn't look right. It turns out the dust is actually from the bioballs. And the sponge looked funny because they literally squeezed two sponge into one. And here is the media that was causing all the dust. I decided to clean it up and put it back together. An important thing to remember, there's no instruction. So watching me putting it back together is going to help you avoid the catastrophe that happens to a couple people on Amazon. First, take out the sponge and let it expand, because it's going to double in size. It is nice that they did give us 2 extra sponge. Also, make sure you don't lose this little piece here. It's the airline connector to the sponge filter, and I can definitely see somebody tossing it out. Also, don't lose the cap. You're gonna need it. So this is me trying to disassemble the product. I almost feel like I'm not doing this correctly because I seriously thought I was gonna snap the stem. But I'm pretty sure this is how you take it out, and I didn't seem to break anything. Due to the lack of instruction, I kind of had to figure out how to get the cover off to access the bioballs. You want to kind of find something sharp and pointy, in this case a scissor, and kind of probe around on these notches here. Am I doing this correctly? Probably not. After a scary experience, I finally got the lid off, and here's the bioball. So the bioballs is like the big thing about this filter. Supposedly, bioballs gives you more surface area for bacteria to grow and gives you a better efficient biofiltration. To be honest, it looks pretty good, and I don't really have an issue with the bioballs. As a sponge filter aficionado, I do however look for these little notches where the air will flow through. These little notches here, they have a huge influence on the uniformity and the size of the air bubbles coming out of the sponge filter. That's actually very important, and I will discuss more in detail later on in this video. Putting this thing back together is not as scary. The lids pretty much snap back on, as well as the flow stem. I do have to admit though, I was kind of nervous about breaking something. Once you let the sponge expand, it fits in pretty well. Just lies right on top, and simply close off with the end piece. And here's what it looks like before you put in the airline tubing. As a note, you should know that this sponge filter would not work if you lose this piece right here. This is the connector from the airline to the sponge filter. And so here it is, ready to go in the tank. My experience with sponge filter has been that they are pretty much the only filter I use. Once you get to a certain level of fish obsession, you're going to end up with like 20 tanks in your garage. So the only kind of practical way to have filtration is to use sponge filter. As somebody who have a lot of experience with sponge filters, I don't like how airline tubing is connected to the top of some of the traditional sponge filters. It impedes the flow and efficiency of the sponge filter. 2, a lot of sponge filter end up gurgling bubbles instead of flowing a steady stream of bubbles. So instead of having a continuous flow of water through the sponge, you're kind of having like this pose. A lot of people don't know this. The more smooth and even the bubbles flow through the sponge filter, the more efficient the sponge filter is. That's why earlier on, I wanted to put an emphasis on the air diffuse holes on the bottom of the sponge filter. The way those diffuse slits are designed has a huge influence on the function of the sponge filter. So on to testing the filter. I'll be conducting the test on this 20-gallon tank. Currently, it's housing a small colony of Pelvicochromis sacchamontis. These guys are young adults, and they were given to me by a good friend. The current sponge filter in this tank isn't working very well, and it's having that gurgling issue that I talked about earlier. When installing a sponge filter, remember to kind of squeeze your sponge so that it gets filled up with water before use. Otherwise, you're going to have that issue where the sponge filter is floating up due to it being too buoyant from the air bubbles trapped inside the sponge. As you can see here, it might actually take quite a bit of time before it starts settling down. Once you get the sponge filter to settle, make sure you squeeze the old sponge to get all that good bacteria inside the tank. Your tank's going to get really cloudy when you do this, but don't worry, it's not bad or dirty, it's the good stuff. And it's also going to help us with the other test, which is testing its ability to filter. I'm going to now test the ability of the sponge filter to actually filter. To test the filtration capabilities of this filter, I took a 15-minute long video and speeded it up to 7.5 times. Overall, the filter does a pretty good job of filtering. Skip to the end if you like, or just stick around and enjoy the music as the filter does its magic. So this is what it looks like before and after 15 minutes of filtration. And here's what it looks like after 2 days. I added in some plants and some clay pots, as well as moved the filter to the back corner. To be honest, I'm actually kind of impressed. The tank looks super clear without any water changes. And I have a few ideas on why this filter works so well. The most important thing is that it flows bubble freely and uniformly, without any go-go's or hiccups. The other important aspect is that it's a very tall design. You see, if a bubble can flow through a longer path, it can create more displacement and draw in more water through the sponges. That's why you often see sponge filters have extension tubes right on top of where the bubble exit. Of course, nothing is perfect, and I had to talk about the negatives. The worst thing about this filter is super obvious. There's no instruction. People are going to be super confused when they open the box and see something like this. I've been keeping fish and using sponge filter for a really long time, and even I thought I had a defective product. The design and build quality could be a little better. Not necessarily that it's a terrible design or that the plastic is fragile. It's just that the way the pieces lock together and the lack of instruction basically means that people are going to start breaking stuff when they're trying to disassemble or clean it. And the last thing that I don't like is the sponge. The porosity is a little too fine and it doesn't sit flush with the base of the filter. There is a little tiny gap you can see here in this video. Right there. If you don't push that sponge down to make it flush with the base, I can totally see some of those small nanofish getting stuck and die. In fact, that's actually one of the negative reviews. It's one of those little things that could be a huge issue. And the sponge, it's just too fine. I'm referring to the porosity of the sponge. Although a finer sponge filters better, and provides more surface area for beneficial bacteria to grow. It requires more maintenance because it's simply going to get clogged up easier. A sponge filter's main goal is really biofiltration, not mechanical filtration. So having a coarser, larger porosity sponge is actually better in the long run. It will flow more water and you can simply ignore it for a much longer period of time. Now, I'm not saying that a fine sponge filter is any worse. If you can keep up with the maintenance, it's totally fine. Otherwise, I tend to prefer a coarser grained sponge. So let's conclude this and ask ourselves, is this a good buy? I will be breaking it down to function, build quality, and value. This filter ability to function as a filter is exceptional. The free and even flowing bubbles and the tall designs make this a very good sponge filter. So I will put it 10 out of 10. And just to prove to you that I'm not being a shill, check out this guy's before and after on one of the Amazon reviews. I'm going to put the build quality at 6 out of 10. And here's why. It's not really that the plastic itself is bad, but certain parts can feel really flimsy and many parts feel like you could break it by accident. To be honest, you don't really need a sponge filter to be like of the highest quality plastic. But the way the plastic snaps back on together and the lack of instruction makes this product really prone to user error. And then the sponge. It's really nice that they gave us 2 sponge. I really like that. All we have to do now is make the sponge a little bigger so that it's a snugger fit. Make the porosity a lot bigger so that it flows water even better and you don't have to do maintenance on it as much. AQQA, if you're listening, you have a good product. These fixes is something that you can easily do as a company. What about its value? Currently right now on Amazon, you can get 2 of the equivalent size traditional round sponge filter for about $16. But you're going to get something that's going to be prone to gurgling and at best only filters about 70% as good. So I'm placing the value of this product at a 7 out of 10. At $20, it's actually a good buy if you just need one sponge filter. So, should you buy this filter? If you don't have a lot of tanks and you're looking for a highly capable filter, this is a very good filter to buy. It's probably one of the more capable sponge filters you can buy on Amazon. For some people, the square design is actually a good thing because it's going to allow you to kind of put the filter in the corner of the tank and easily escape it. It also doesn't have the space in between the base of the sponge filter and the filter itself. I personally hate the space that the round filters have. Fish high underneath it makes it difficult for me to find, and it doesn't look as neat when you try to escape around it. This might not be a good buy if you're the odd person like me who have 20 or so tanks. At $20 a unit, it's just not economically feasible for me to use this sponge filter for all my tanks. And most importantly, it's really because the sponge is just simply too fine. When you have a lot of tanks, you want to have low maintenance. And I don't really want to be cleaning 20 or so sponges every 3 months. So that's going to be it, guys. What do you guys think of this filter? Would you buy one? And for those of you who have already purchased one, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, guys.